Welcome to Discourse number 3, part 1, The Great Work, The Journey of Return. This is session number 18. The Hero's Journey, The Way of Return. In his book, The Theosophical Seal by Arthur M. Kuhn, he writes, "When the Creator put down fragments of himself into this world of manifestation to become seeds of future humanity, there was inherent within each of these fragments the desire or urge to reunite with its parental source. The spiritual journey of return to remembering the true essence of your spiritual identity is revealed within Kuhn's quote as the desire or urge to reunite with its parental source. This is the highest desire that a human entity is capable of, as it propels the seeker to reconnect and seek completion, to close the black hole that craves fulfillment. Michelangelo's creation of Adam artwork mentioned earlier is symbolic of this urge to reunite. Your completion or correction of the original error or sin that states I am separate can only be found in the knowledge of your true identity as a spiritual being. Until this knowledge is fully integrated and made conscious in your human personality, then confusion and incompleteness will prevail in your mental states. The gospel of truth, as declared within the text of the Gospel of St. Thomas, makes this truth known. For where there is envy and strife, there is an incompleteness, but where there is unity, there is completeness. Since this incompleteness came about because they did not know the Father, so when they know the Father, incompleteness from that moment on will cease to exist. As one's ignorance disappears when he gains knowledge, and as darkness disappears when light appears, so also incompleteness is eliminated by completeness. This underlying urge to unite or find completion is the foundation whereby the way, that is the basis of all spiritual practices as mentioned earlier, are seeded upon. The path of apotheosis, as experienced by the human entity veiled in ignorance, is frequently given the term the hero's journey, a term coined by Joseph Campbell in his book The Hero with 1,000 Faces. The word hero, etymologically defined, originates from the Greek word heros, meaning demigod. Demigod in turn meaning inferior or minor deity. The hero's journey symbolizes the transcendent journey of the human entity imprisoned in its lowest nature as a demigod, ignorant as to its true spiritual essence, on the journey of return to remembering and reclaiming its lost inheritance of the God within. In The Hero with 1,000 Faces book, Campbell writes, "The godly powers sought and dangerously won are revealed to have been within the heart of the hero all the time. He is the king's son who has come to know who he is and therewith has entered into the exercise of his proper power. God's son who has learned to know how much that title means. From this point of view, the hero is symbolical of that divine creative and redeeming image which is hidden within us all, only waiting to be known and rendered into life. The two, the hero and his ultimate God, the seeker and the found, are thus understood as the outside and inside of a single self-mirrored mystery which is identical with the mystery of the manifest world. The great deed of the supreme hero is come to the knowledge of this unity in multiplicity and then make it known." In the earlier discourse, You Create Your Reality, this veil of ignorance as a forgetfulness as to your true essence and nature as a spiritual being was stated. The Creator knows. The created is the state of forgetfulness, or the aspect that does not know. An aspect of one must forget in order for existence or creation to be experienced. The hero's journey therefore becomes the symbolism for the significant aspect of the matrix program likened to the game of hide and seek, where you as a human entity or avatar that has forgotten is awakened and remembers who you really are as God in disguise. This journey is likened to a quest or a series of trials and tribulations that the hero encounters to conquer the base nature of the personality. The ego, body, mind consciousness, which receives the thought, I am separate, was described in the earlier discourse, the ego personality, as the Antichrist, as it has been created to be the opposite and inverted consciousness of the Christ consciousness mind. Confirmation of this was revealed in the text quoted from A Course in Miracles. All forms of Antichrist oppose the Christ and fall before his face like a dark veil that seems to shut you off from him, alone in darkness, yet the light is there. The hero is therefore the Antichrist, who is created as the opposite and is propelled on a journey to seek outside of itself for completion. However, as the ego's role is to be the opposite expression of the Christ's mind, its hidden mantra of seek and do not find is continually operating at a subconscious level to sabotage the human entity's desires and goals to achieve completion and fulfillment in the material world of its personal reality. As long as you are seeking to unite outside of yourself and attempt to satisfy your desires independently, you will be unconsciously attracting the opposite. A Course in Miracles refers to this conflict of the ego's motivations with the inherent state of peace that is your natural state as antithetical. The Holy Spirit wants only this. For sharing the Father's love for his Son, he seeks to remove all guilt from his mind that he may remember his Father in peace. Peace and guilt are antithetical, and the Father can be remembered only in peace. Love and guilt cannot coexist, and to accept one is to deny the other. Guilt hides Christ from your sight, for it is the denial of the blamelessness of God's Son. The etymological meaning of the word antithetical is of the nature or of containing a rhetorical antithesis, arising from the original Greek word of antithetikos, meaning to be in opposition or resistance. Thetical defined means laid down, absolute or positive, like a law. Hence the ego, body, mind consciousness is in opposition or resistance to an absolute or law. The hero's journey is essentially describing the process of synthesis. A thesis or thetical state of absolute immutable truth is synthesized with the opposite as a contradiction, to be antithesis or antithetical. One is stable, unchanging and immutable. The other is the changeable, unstable or mutable. This state of synthesis produces creativity, as something new and different always emerges from this process and interaction. Hence, your experience of life becomes the ultimate act of creation or creativity, the art of becoming, whereby your inner alchemical transformation experienced on the journey as the hero ultimately unites what was perceived as separate and apart, to instead be perceived in truth as whole and complete. A Course in Miracles calls this correction a reconciliation. Christ's vision is the Holy Spirit's gift, God's alternative to the illusion of separation and to the belief in the reality of sin, guilt, and death. It is the one correction for all errors of perception, the reconciliation of the seeming opposites on which this world is based. Its kindly light shows all things from another point of view, reflecting the thought system that arises from knowledge and making return to God not only possible but inevitable. What was regarded as injustices done to one by someone else now becomes a call for help and union. The reconciliation of the seeming opposites, as stated in this passage, underlies the motive of the hero's journey. The ego, body, mind consciousness that dominates the human entity as an archetype that expresses a polarized focus of attention or point of view must be reconciled or become balanced in its internal polarities. Hence, the hero that is seeking to unite or complete itself as compelled by the law of one is in essence seeking mental equilibrium, which is unity and peace. A state of mental imbalance, which is the polarized state of being the human personality experiences, will induce suffering as long as the polarities are unreconciled. To obtain mental equilibrium hence becomes the substantial basis behind the practices of the way, such as yoga, meditation, right mindfulness, and alchemy. Paul Foster Case, in his work, The Great Work, affirms this. Alchemy aims at a state of consciousness which is reflected into the physical plane as perfect vibratory equilibrium. This equilibrium already exists in nature, and it is the business of an alchemist to manifest it through his personality. Thus we are told that equilibrium is the basis of the great work, and all Hermetic books admonish us to imitate nature. Alice Bailey, in her book The Treatise of White Magic, also makes reference to this significant understanding as equilibrium as the basis of spiritual transformation. In relation to the human unit, the secret of liberation lies in the balancing of the forces and the equilibrizing of the pairs of opposites. The path is the narrow line between these pairs which the aspirant finds and treads, turning neither to the right nor to the left. In the Hermetic teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, which originally declared the first principle of natural law as the all is mind, the universe is mental, the principle of equilibrium is referred to as the mastery of polarization. In the book The Kabbalion, a study of Hermetic philosophy of ancient Egypt and Greece, it is stated, the mastery of polarization is the mastery of the fundamental principles of mental transmutation or mental alchemy. For unless one acquires the art of changing his own polarity, he will be unable to affect his environment. In spiritual symbolism, this process of synthesis, compelled by the unconscious urge to seek the state of equilibrium, as expressed within Campbell's term, the hero's journey, is the image of the Ouroboros, a dragon or serpent eating its own tail. This symbolic image has prevailed throughout human history and has appeared in the hieroglyphics of the ancient Egyptians, the alchemical texts, the Indian tribes of Native America, the Aztecs, Chinese symbology, and the serpent of the Garden of Eden. In The Key to the Universe for Spiritual Interpretation of Numbers and Symbols book, the symbol of the Ouroboros is explained. A circle formed by a serpent, symbol of life and wisdom, swallowing its tail, symbolizes unending life or immortality. But this symbol means far more than a cycle of time, for it also symbolizes the source of all creation, the womb of nature from which the universe comes forth, and also the womb from which the future man proceeds, even the fetus in the womb being curved upon itself in a circular fashion. The great creative force is the Christ force, or that fructifying and vivifying power through whose action all things are brought into manifestation, not out of nothing, but out of the O, or great storehouse of potential energy, which awaits only the creative activity of the Lord God, the law of good, to bring forth. This symbol is extremely significant in the modern era, as this archetypical symbol of regeneration resides in the unconscious of all human entities. Knowledge of this compelling urge embedded in the human psyche therefore becomes essential for the treatment of conditions relating to psychological health, which often accompany spiritual ascension. Clinical psychologist and professor of psychology at Toronto University, Jordan Peterson, in his book Maps of Meaning, The Architecture of Belief, deals with the theory of how people construct meaning in their lives. Ancient myths and their symbolic relevance provide a critical aspect of understanding such search for meaning, and hence his book includes discussion of the Ouroboros. The primordial theriomorphic serpent god is endless potential, is whatever comprises prior to the emergence of the capacity for experience. This potential has been represented as the self-devouring dragon, most commonly, because this image aptly symbolizes the union of commiserate opposites. The Ouroboros is simultaneously represented of two antithetical primordial elements. As a snake, the Ouroboros is a creature of the ground, of matter. As a bird, a winged animal, it is creature of the air, the sky, or spirit. The Ouroboros symbolizes the union of known, associated with spirit, and unknown associated with matter, explored and unexplored, symbolizes the juxtaposition of the masculine principles of security, tyranny, and order with the feminine principles of darkness, disillusion, creativity, and chaos. It serves as a symbol for the ground of reality itself. Another significant psychologist who also contributed to this deeper understanding of the hidden mythological influence of the symbolic Ouroboros in the psyche was German-born psychologist Erich Neumann. In one of his most widely accepted essays published in 1954, The Origins and History of Consciousness, he writes of the stages of archetypical expression in the development of consciousness. Again, the Ouroboros is identified. So long as the infantile ego consciousness is weak and feels the strain of its own existence as heavy and oppressive, while drowsiness and sleep are felt as delicious pleasure, it has not yet discovered its own reality and differentness. So long as this continues, the Ouroboros reigns on as the great whirling wheel of life, where everything not yet individual is submerged in the union of opposites. Neumann, as a developmental psychologist, also held a PhD in philosophy and frequently gave lectures at the C.J. Jung Institute in Switzerland. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, has been the primary contributor in the 20th century to incorporating this deeper spiritual insight into the role of archetypes in psychiatric treatment. In his work, The Collected Works of C.G. Jung, the Ouroboros is referred to. The alchemists, who in their own way knew more about the nature of the individuation process than we moderns do, expressed this paradox through the symbol of the Ouroboros, the snake that eats its own tail. The Ouroboros has been said to have meaning of infinity or wholeness. In the age-old image of the Ouroboros lies the thought of devouring oneself and turning oneself into a circulatory process, for it was clear to the more astute alchemists that the prima materia of the art was man himself. The Ouroboros is a dramatic symbol for the integration and assimilation of the opposite, of the shadow. This feedback process is at the same time a symbol of immortality, since it is said of the Ouroboros that he slays himself and brings himself to life, fertilizes himself and gives birth to himself. He symbolizes the one who proceeds from the clash of opposites, and he therefore constitutes the secret of the prima materia, which unquestionably stems from man's unconscious. The term "the clash of opposites" cited by Jung in this quote when referring to the Ouroboros is the compelling act of synthesis in action or process. For this synthesis of action and reaction to occur, there is a third aspect present that facilitates this process, a medium which acts as the battleground. In the ancient Gnostic texts is called the pleroma. This is the field where the battle of ignorance as darkness meets the light of truth to find unity and completion in the place of equilibrium. Pleroma in Latin means fullness, and in Greek it is defined as that which fills. The fullness in pleroma relates to the expression of divinity or deity and is symbolized by this image. Jung also wrote of the pleroma in 1929. The Gnostics had that idea and expressed it as pleroma, a state of fullness where the pairs of opposites, yea and nay, day and night, are together. Then when they become, it is either day or night. In the state of promise, before they become, they are non-existent. There is neither white nor black, good nor bad. Another of the ancient texts of Gnostic teachings, known as the Pistis Sophia, discovered in 1773, revealing the teachings of Jesus to his disciples, also makes reference to this significance of the pleroma. Yet a little while, and I will tell you the mystery of the pleroma and the pleroma of the pleroma. I will conceal nothing from you this hour, but in perfectness will I perfect you in the whole pleroma, and all perfection and every mystery, which things indeed are the perfection of all perfections, the pleroma of all pleromas, and the gnosis of all gnoses, which are in my vesture. The pleroma is a symbol used in ancient scripts to depict the fullness prior to becoming, and containing all opposites in completion, is the implicate order of physicist David Bowen's holonomy theory and the akasha of the Eastern philosophical teachings. It is where all possibilities and potentialities of ideas in the non-local field of quantum physics reside complete and as yet unmanifested. The pleroma symbol contains within it multiple symbols as used within the ancient mystery schools, including that of the pentacle or pentagram that was presented in the first discourse, the ego personality. The integrated triangles of the pentagram represented man with knowledge as to his true identity as a spiritual being, as well as the as above, so below of the Hermetic axiom. This was the union of heaven and earth in the ultimate expression of God realized in matter. Therefore, the Ouroboros could be considered as the process of synthesis that unfolds the potentials from the implicate order into the explicate order for manifestation as the human entity's experience of a dualistic, three-dimensional personal reality. Manly P. Hall, in his book The Secret Teachings of All Ages, describes this process of manifestation from the pleroma. By this we are to understand that manifestation is the result of a positive and a negative principle, one acting upon the other, and it takes place in the middle plane or point of equilibrium called the pleroma. This pleroma is a peculiar substance produced out of the blending of the spiritual and material eons. Out of the pleroma was individualized the demiurgus, the immortal mortal, to whom we are responsible for our physical existence and the suffering we must go through in connection with it. The hero's journey reveals to you the deeper purpose and meaning underlying your true life's purpose. It reveals the suffering and sorrow that is inherent in this journey and why and when it will be your companion. When you are given the spiritual knowledge as to the why, then your journey at least is accomplished with an awareness as to its greater meaning. It is the greatest call to life that you will ever experience. The actual path is different for everyone, but the destination is always the same. A symbolic return home to the heart of love itself. Spiritual author Carolyn Myss, in her book Entering the Castle, provides a powerful insight into this transformational journey to Christ consciousness and enlightenment. Christ consciousness is a universal force, the energy of spiritual evolution, the realization within the individual soul that power, wisdom, and love must be balanced in the mind. With Christ consciousness, you experience the unity of all the universe, yourself as part of a greater awakening to God as the universe and the universe as God. Christ consciousness means that you empty yourself of ego so that the Spirit can come in. As Jesus said, "Empty thyself and I shall fill thee." This is the consciousness of the third eye, the spiritual eye, which identifies the vision of the inner mind and receives information from higher sources. This concludes session 18 of Discourse number 3, part 1 for the great work, The Journey of Return. I shall put a link in the description box below for session number 19. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you once again for your time that you've taken to attend this session. So be it.